In this tutorial, I'm going to quickly show you how to make a godet, how to sew it for those who struggle with sewing a godet neatly. So here I have the black marker and that is my seam line. So I'll assume this is a skirt, for instance, and this is your waist here. So you want to mark from your waist to know where your godet is going to start from. So I'll just mark here as my point where I want the godet to start from. And I'm going to go on the machine and I'll sew a straight stitch on my seam allowance from the beginning of the waist to this point here. So get on the machine and sew a straight stitch to that point here. And then take it off. So you need to take out your fabric and open up the seam and get on your ironing table and press this open. Ironing makes a lot of difference in your project work, and you'll find out it's going to save a lot of time if you iron properly. So here I have pressed my seams open in preparation for the godet itself. Now you need to remember where I started the mark and try to measure the distance between that point there and the hem of the garment. So here I have 14.5 centimeter. Take note of that. Now first of all, you need to determine the width of your godet. So in this case, I'll just do about 8 centimeter. And from that point, I'll just mark it up a bit. And I'll repeat the same process to the left. So that's 8 centimeter. Now, if I rule from this point to this point, I can't get 14.5 centimeters, which is why I need you to come here and just mark that point up, that 8 centimeter on both sides, as a guide for us to know how to pivot. Right? So grab your ruler or whatever it is you're using and then mark the 14.5, and wherever it stops on this line is where we are going. So just for a quick recap, this is the length of the godet, 14.5. This is the width, to the right 8 centimeter and to the left 8 centimeter. And on that 8 centimeter line, I squared up and I squared up just halfway. There's no guide to that. And I want to measure 14.5, and wherever 14.5 stops on this line is where I'm going to stop. So this is where I've marked, and on this side, my 14.5 stops here. And so I marked it. And I did the same thing on the other side, right? So the next thing to do now is grab your ruler and connect. Right now you should have something that looks like this. So the next thing to do is you'll get your curve ruler and try to connect from the middle to each point on the side. I repeat the same process on the other side. You might also want to fold into two. To get the right, to get both of them appearing the same on both sides. So I'm just tracing just to have the line, and then I'll just transfer the marking to the other side as well. So the next thing to do would be to mark the half inch that we have here as seam allowance, and then try to take a note of it from the top edge of the triangle here. Mark the seam allowance. That is the most important part of this. Mark it and make sure you can see it clearly. And then we're going to fold this into two because we want to add seam allowance to the sides. So fold it into two on the middle line. Okay, so you see this angle here as well. Try to form like an extended curve of about 1/2 inch, signifying the same allowance at the bottom as well. Something of that sort. And then grab your ruler, and from this dot here, we're going to connect to this point here. When you're done, we cut it out. Okay, so the next thing to do is to cut it. So we're cutting. Of course, if you haven't added hem allowance to the skirt or the garment you measured earlier, then you need to add that as well. So if I take this out, this is what we have. Now, this dot here is so important, because that's the next thing we need to pay attention to for the joining. So now you need to grab the skirt pattern or wherever it is you want to tuck it into, and grab your goodie. Now, all things being equal, if you've done the right thing, this should align properly both at the hem and at that dot there. Now you're going to notice that this might be slightly smaller at the beginning. That's fine. For obvious reasons, it's a triangle and you're trying to slot it into this. So now you need to locate that dot and this dot and place them on top each other first. Now separate each side. So we start with one side, place it and pin in place. So when you pin in place, always remember that the dots must be on each other, and you're separating this other one first, and you're starting right where the seam from the straight seam started, and you're going to sew all the way to this end here. When you're done, you're going to start right from this point, and then you would sew the other side as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and sew now. So now note where we're going, and we need to make sure we stop right there. So I'm going to take out my pin now, and I want to see clearly where the dot is without sewing way too into it, and I'll go very slowly. Now at this point you might want to change the width of your stitches to very tiny, so that you don't have to backstitch and it secures it in place. Okay, so if you're not there yet, just try to wheel and then take off your fabric. So when you have sewn that, you can flip and quickly check what you've done so far. So the next thing is to sew the other side, right? So that's very simple. We're going to start off from exactly where we stopped, pin this in place as well, and exactly from the same dot we are going to finish off the sewing to the side, right? Make sure you start from exactly the same point, and all things being equal, this should align properly, right? So I'm about to sew the next side, and you can see I put a pin right here so that I just know exactly where I'm putting, where I'm starting my stitch. So I will take off the pin, and I will try as much as possible to start from the same point. Good. And then you just simply sew. Now, if It might be wise actually if you don't reduce the width of your stitch to back stitch, but don't use your leg, just use your hand to wind, and that's it. And so here we have the godet, and godet just adds volume to the garment. It can be found in sleeves, it can be found on the bodies, it can be found on the skirt, it can be found anywhere really, but how to sew it makes a lot of difference. And so that's the godet inserted, and I look forward to seeing your own attempt.